Good morning, everyone. It's a privilege for me to be here and to participate in this panel. I feel like they're the experts, but what I want to do is to kind of help shape the dialogue based on the research that America's Charities has done. You've heard this morning a lot about Snapshot, so my role as part of this panel is to kind of dive into Snapshot and tell you a little bit more about it and some of the findings. But before I do that, I just want to make two comments about the introductions today. First off, Steve, thanks for saying how old I am, for admitting that you and I worked together back in...
I view you as a son, Steve.
But I don't look at it as old. I just look at it as somebody who's watched the evolution of workplace giving for a number of years, and so can speak to the changes that are taking place, and very positive changes. The second one is I was walking from the metro this morning, and it was a beautiful day here in Washington, and I was kind of replaying the events in my mind of what was going to transpire today, and I thought, Lynn Filderman's going to get up and say she's a proud Washingtonian. And I thought I was speaking before her, so I thought, I'm going to preempt her. Well, she spoke first. What she didn't tell you is that 3 blocks from here, her father had an appliance store back in the 1950s. So not only a Washingtonian, but also comes from a retail family here in the Washington area. Snapshot 2014 was released 2 weeks ago, an event at the National Press Club. Some of you were probably at that event. Just show of hands, how many were there? What I'm going to share with you today is very similar to what you heard. For those that weren't, which the majority, this will be your first time to kind of take a dive into what is Snapshot 2014. America's Charities has long been an advocate for effective workplace giving programs, and they've undertaken a lot of research. Snapshot 2014 was the 4th research report that's been released in the last 14 years. Snapshot 2013 was released just 14 months ago, so you start to see the pace accelerate. And I can tell you already that we're planning, and we heard some ideas today for additional research that America's Charities could undertake. So I'm proud to be associated with America's Charities in that regard. Snapshot 2013, let's start there, because Snapshot 2013 took a look at what was happening inside the corporation. And that's where we really think, that's what we think about when we think of workplace giving, because it happens generally within the walls of the workplace. Companies run a campaign, ask their employees to participate, employees give, the money then funnels to the recipient charities. So we spent a lot of time in Snapshot 2013 looking about what's happening inside the walls of the workplace. That report, as I mentioned, was released about 14 months ago. When that was done, America's Charities sat down and said, what's next? And we said, you know what? No one's really talked to the recipient charities, those nonprofits that receive those funds, and it's about $4 billion a year that comes through workplace giving. So we decided that we would take a look at how are corporations changing and responding to what's happening within the walls of the workplace. How do they view workplace giving? Do they see value to it? At the same time we were having this discussion, the overhead myth started to surface. And so we said, what a great opportunity for us to continue that dialogue where it's happening by GuideStar, by independent sector, and BBB Wise Giving Alliance. Wouldn't it be great if America's Charities could somehow further that discussion a little bit more? And so we tried to take that into account in developing this research. What we did is we organized an advisory team to help us frame the questions and to frame the objectives of what we were trying to accomplish. And I just want to let you know who served on that advisory council. Board Effect, Catalog for Philanthropy, Global Impact, Grant Station, GreatNonprofits, GuideStar, Independent Sector, and Nonprofit Financial Specialists. So all of them had input into helping us frame the dialogue and the questions that we wanted to ask nonprofits. So hence, we looked at what corporations were doing, we looked at what was happening externally with the overhead myth. Snapshot 2014 was launched. There were 4 key findings from this, and I list them here, but we're going to go into more detail in a few moments about what each of those mean. First off, the rising tide of expectations. You've heard that repeatedly this morning. The digital culture in a networked world and how that's changing the way we operate, definitely having an impact on you and what you're doing. That engagement is the new standard, and that developing and maintaining corporate partnerships is really a challenge. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So let's talk about that number 1 key finding. There is a rising tide of expectations. There's a growing expectation by companies and employees that charitable organizations must meet a new and higher standard. Corporate, institutional, and individual donors expect charities to demonstrate greater accountability, transparency, and impact with measurable results. The nonprofits that participated, and there were 240, understand these new standards of performance. But let's talk a little bit more about this transparency, good governance, and accountability. In Snapshot 2014, we asked the participants to identify the important elements. What we found, if you look at the chart that says important elements of good governance, that 82% of charities said, yes, it's important to be accountable, it's important to be transparent. But when you ask them specific factors, how do they demonstrate that? What are they doing beyond just saying, yes, we agree that it's important? How are they demonstrating that? And you look at some of the things they can do, such as board review of the annual 990, formal rules to guide the governance. There was less clarity on their part about that. So there was a disconnect. What we found is a disconnect. Agreement with the concept, but really uncertainty about how to do it. How do we demonstrate that? How do we document that and demonstrate that? So, rising tide of expectations, charities are meeting those, they understanding them, but they need help. They need help in how do we do that? The second key finding was that technology and the networked world are changing the way nonprofits do business. Charities have expanded their use of technology, allowing them to deliver more information faster. They're changing their communication strategies to include additional data and placing emphasis on storytelling, focusing on outcomes and results. We found that more and more charities are changing their practices to demonstrate this commitment that we've talked about. And we're seeing that reflected, as you'll see here. Digital and social media are allowing donors to help them tell their stories both inside and outside the walls of the workplace. And they're empowering donors to tell their story for them. And so technology is being used to connect employees, donors, companies with reputable nonprofit organizations. So technology is really changing the way we operate. And as you'd see in the survey results, they're putting more information online. They're trying to be more transparent by making more information available. Key finding number 3, engagement is the new standard. That really surfaced in Snapshot 2014 when companies said employees are asking for more opportunities to be engaged. We want this to be more than a once a year, I gave at the office type campaign. That they were shifting from that once a year to more year round. They were starting to integrate and include giving and volunteering together. So if you had a portfolio of ways to be engaged, either giving time, talent, or money. Charities have responded to that. They told us in Snapshot 2014 that they're seeing an increase in the number of requests to provide volunteer opportunities. They're seeing an increase in the number of young professionals that are looking to be engaged with them. All very, very positive things. But they also said there's a challenge with that. The challenge is, as the number of requests increase, that finding meaningful opportunities to have groups of employees come into the work site at the nonprofit and do something is a challenge for them. But they want to do it. Why do they want to do it? They want to do it because they want to respond to their nonprofit partners. One of the survey participants that responded says, we painted the wall 7 times in the last year because we had to respond to those corporate requests. And so that starts to create the need for a dialogue to continue to begin between the company and the nonprofit organization of what really is meaningful. But we also know Snapshot 2013 said that companies remain committed to workplace giving. It's a part of their strategy for employee engagement. It's part of their strategy for employee retention and recruitment. And employees said, we value workplace giving as well. Companies said they're changing to year-round programs. Charities said, we love it. We love it. We love to be able to spread these opportunities throughout the year. They value matching gifts, a growing trend, and becoming the standard of workplace giving campaigns. So year-round giving, matching gifts, payroll contributions, and volunteerisms are valued by both the companies as well as the charities that participate. Just a little bit more about workplace giving. Charities see workplace giving as a valuable tool as well, and hence that's the value of participating with America's Charities. 50% of those responding to the survey for Snapshot 2014 said they have an active workplace giving component. Many of those participate in workplace giving like you through a federation such as America's Charities. 60% said that workplace giving is either remaining stable or increasing. So it's a growth strategy for companies. So if you're looking at is the workplace giving going away, no, it's not going away. It's changing, it's evolving, but it's going to be here for a long time. And finally, the fourth key finding was that companies say they value partnerships with companies. Charities say they value partnerships with companies, but they say they have a real challenge in sustaining them and maintaining them. And so that's something we have to talk about is how can we work together in that dialogue that takes place. So finally, let me just share with you and close with this, some key insights. This is based on our experience and our expertise. We have found that there's universal recognition on the part of charities that these charity validators as third-party sources of validation are important. They've come to accept them, they've come to recognize them, and now they're anxious to learn how to work better with them so that they make sure their information is being told in a meaningful way that demonstrates this impact that we've talked about today. So charities are looking and learning to work with these outside validators. As I mentioned earlier, we found that there's universal recognition and agreement that they need to be more transparent, more accountable, to show good governance. They need help in what does that mean? How do we do that? And America's Charities is trying to do that through some of the work that they're doing, including the High Performing Charities Initiative. We also know that to meet rising expectations, charities need to go beyond just talking about their mission and their programs. They have to really talk about deeper impact that they're making and how they're making a difference in the world today. We also know, we've talked a lot about technology, that technology is just a tool. You know, that it takes leadership, it takes vision, it takes human interaction to drive successful employee engagement programs, and so we need to keep that in mind. And finally, you know, just a reminder that Snapshot is a moment in time. It was 240 charities that participated in an online survey at a moment in time. We're going to keep that up. So let me close with this. As we continue to encourage and promote and advocate, America's Charities will continue to encourage, promote, and advocate for strong corporate nonprofit partnerships. We understand and we will undertake additional research, and so if you have ideas, we'd love to hear that. We want to be a value-added partner with each of you in learning about the trends, learning about the key issues, but more importantly, how to address those key issues. And as been indicated, if you want to get a copy of Snapshot, there's information, but basically go to the America's Charities website and you can download a PDF. Thank you.